Hey everyone, it's Carl with Tabletop Tango talking to you again today. If you like what you see, I'd love to see a subscribe, make me feel good. And today I'm talking about something that came up as I was waxing nostalgic about one of my favorite campaigns called Vampire Empire. And this was a campaign that started off with four people, your normal size party, but we had players drop out who couldn't attend, and so I ended up with just two players. And it was one of the most fun campaigns I've ever run, and it was just for two people. So, what do I talk about today? So, today I want to talk about some of the things I did to make that campaign fun for a small party. Very few people. And why would you want to do that? Actually, there might be reasons. So, think about media. In media, there's a lot of examples of where the hero or heroine is just an individual who maybe has a buddy working with them. The buddy cop movie, the hero's journey, where someone's going out to right a wrong and they have a partner coming along the way, or even just individually. I guess you could get the player's party size as low as one. And then you've got things like superheroes where it's natural to have the superhero and his sidekick. And so there's a lot of media that's all about a main character and not an ensemble cast. And so sometimes it's harder to make an ensemble cast for some of this media. So take advantage of it. So let's talk about some of the things that I did. So the first thing I didn't do is I didn't create a GM NPC and create, like, I have a small party of two and I need a party of five. So guess what? There's three NPCs who are kind of slogging along with the players that I'm running. And so suddenly they become part of the story. Didn't want to do that at all. It's all about the players' characters. We're not going to have a bunch of people tagging along that the players have to deal with, or they're in the shadows until suddenly there's a combat. Well, now it's important that these players are there, or these characters exist in this world, and I don't like that idea, and I don't think it was necessary to make this work. We just had the two players, and we had one thing we did have though is we had NPCs on the periphery. So if you think about a lot of cop shows, you've got the partners working the case, but there's a whole bunch of a whole bunch of characters outside of their direct involvement who are helping them out. So, your classic, you've got the scientist, you've got the person doing the autopsies and the computer forensics, and they're feeding that information to the players. So if the players aren't strong with those, then there's a chance to bring those other characters on the periphery to help them out, but they're not embedded and they're not going with them. And if there's something that they need to do, let's say they are the investigative type, they're the faces, they're not designed for combat. Well, I'll go back to the Vampire Empire. They were part of a kind of a secret police force that was keeping the world safe from vampires. When they had to go against a big group of people, they weren't going in, right? You watch TV and you see that all the time where the two FBI agents are going in all alone, trying to stop them. And it's like, no, that's not. They called in the SWAT, they called in the cavalry, and then they were part of that battle. So the battle's going on, they're part of it. It's all that action, but they're not solely alone and taking it all on themselves. So again, we use those NPCs from the periphery to help out when necessary to fill out the roles that they need. Another thing is really tied into their backstory. So the thing that it's harder to do when you have larger parties is everybody's got a backstory, but how do you tell those stories as fully as you'd like to? Because otherwise it turns into the campaign of the one where everyone else is just kind of following along and it's all about their story. So how do you solve that? Well, it's tough to do with a large group of players, but for just two, easy. The backstory is key. The whole campaign could be around their two backstories because it's just them. You can focus all of the spotlight on what's important to them and what they're trying to accomplish, and the whole campaign could be just about that backstory if you wanted it to be. It's just really rich, and I took advantage of their backstories were like they really hated vampires, and vampires were the worst things, and they wanted to kill them, but they wanted to have a journey where maybe they discovered that it's not all black and white. And so that turned into a lot of the campaign. They ran into vampires who were friendly, who wanted to work with the human lands, and they had to make decisions on whether they were going to, attack them, take them down, put them in the system, because, you find a vampire, you kill it, or you take it in, you take it down. And so we played off that desire, and we could only do that because there was only one of them. It didn't, or two of them, and so we didn't have a lot of reason to try to bring in a whole bunch of different stories. So that was really cool. That worked out nice. So another thing we had was a lot of role playing that happened, because you only had two players. They had all the spotlight. They could interact. They could always, I'm asking them always what they're doing, what their characters are doing. There's no disengagement with them waiting for another conversation between two PCs over here, and they're just waiting for their turn. They always had their turn. And so I played off of that, and I really took advantage of that by keeping the intensity of what they wanted to do, when did they want to do it, how are they going to work together, get them to role play out situations and just sit back and let it happen, because I wasn't trying to manage a lot of the table. So that worked out pretty cool, I thought. So what did I learn from this game that I did? I learned that I don't need to have, henchmen, hirelings getting packed into the party just to make sure it's big enough and it's well-rounded. I could take advantage of the backstory and really build rich stories using just one or two players' stories, because there weren't all these other folks that I had to worry about. There was great role-playing because all the spotlight I could keep on those players, and that was pretty fun. And then I brought in, I think, stroke of genius a little bit was to, I don't know, a lot of people would do this, but was to have those NPCs on the periphery just to fill in the gaps when they had it, because they just didn't have all the skills they needed. So that worked out. That was a great campaign. We had a lot of fun. It was only two players. They were buddy cops in a sense, working for a government agency. It was all about them. It was all about their story, their arc. It was really cool. So some of this might have been obvious to you. Some of it maybe it's not, but this is what I did, or what I had fun doing with my campaign of just a few players. Small party campaign. Anyway, this is Carl. Thank you much. Like, subscribe if you think it's cool. I would appreciate it, and we'll talk later. Fighting monsters out of our league. We'll roll the dice and pray they're nice. A +2 and I might succeed. Whether Cthulhu or D&D, or what's on Drive-Thru RPG, I'll roll the dice and pray